social media will really have you convinced that you're behind or that you're wrong for being where you are, but you aren't. For most people I'm talking to, you still young as fuck. You still got a whole life to live. You still got so much shit you can do. You don't have to have it all today. And I know what it's like to feel like you do, but you don't. It's okay to be where you are. You don't have to rush this process. You can still succeed, and it takes time. What about how to Welcome to How to Beat You podcast, the place where we grow together, and I'm your host, Jarrell Henry. You can stay up to date with all things How to Beat You at my personal socials at Gerard.Henry. And today we're talking about you don't have to rush. If you aren't, I think that you need to give yourself at least a day off from all of the bullshit. I know you see all these things talking about how if you're not showing up every day, you nothing. And it's okay to have discipline. It's okay to have habits that you do every day. But at least the majority of your workload, you need to give yourself time to rest. And I say these things because I've been in periods and phases of my life where I felt that rest was a chore. Like I didn't really know how to rest because it was just so programmed into me that I need to be on go mode all the time and doing all of these things, or I'm not right, or I'm not worthy of life or worthy of good or decent things. And that's just how I was raised, not just from my parents. Like, it's not even to blame my parents, but that's just what society teaches you. So there's been a few different times in my life where I've worked so hard that my body has started shutting down on me. I've started having actual serious health concerns because of how far I was pushing myself. And it wasn't until that I started trying to learn how to rest better. And I've still had plenty other situations where I've overdid it, but it's not necessary. All of that shit isn't necessary. Because whether you want to admit it or not, success takes time. Success takes more time than you would think. It's completely normal on your journey to feel like you qualified to win and not get your wins, because that's just how this shit go. It's annoying. It's ugly. I hate it, but that's the truth. Shit takes time to build, especially if it's a sturdy foundation. And in many cases, it's better for it to take time to build than for you to rush your building and it fucking fall. Like, for example, if an actual building, one of the longest processes of building a home is the foundation, because you got to have everything right. Without that foundation, you get a small earthquake, nigga, the wind blow the wrong way, you lost your house. Like, it's over for, because that's what everything is set off. And if you rush that foundation, you set yourself up to failure. But you got to look at your life the same way. If you still young, or even if you're not young, if you know you still in the early stages of whatever you want to do, or you haven't even started something, you are still establishing and building your foundation. And that still is very important. And that's not a process that you need to rush, because rushing it will only lead you to failure. I can be just as impatient as anybody else. Me and God talk all the time. And I'm like, hey, nigga. Like, like, hey, you told me it was around a corner years ago. Like, nigga, what's good? What's popping? Like, what we talking about? And that can feel so frustrating. But there's still realizations I'm making every day that it's like, damn, If I would have got it back then, I wouldn't have been ready. I would have fucked it up. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to not be ready for your successor. It's okay to still have to handle some things and learn some things before you get your big break. I understand that you feel like your big break is going to change your life. And it may. It may. And I want you to get your big break. But your big break is just the start. If you don't have your foundation established, you'll just be a one-hit wonder. And you might not make music, but it's the same thing. You'll have this one thing pop off, and then it's like, where's that nigga now? And that's what happened when you don't take your time to establish a good foundation. It's not it's not easy, but like Nipsey say, life is a marathon. It's not about you sprinting all the time, because you can't sprint all the time. If I tell you to go out to any field and run 2, 3 sprints, you gonna be gassed. Especially if you haven't been working out like that, you gonna be tired because you not you not ready for all of that. You not built for all of that. You ain't really in shape. So that's the same thing. Like, if you're not, you can't go from 0 to 100 without stretching and warming up and training properly. Cause you gonna tear some shit. Like, you go hurt yourself. And that's not what you want for your future, and that's not what God wants for you. So just chill. Like, just chill. In that process, it's okay to be every step, like I'll say be every phase of the moon. And I'll say that because the moon isn't always full. Sometimes the moon is shining white. Sometimes it's black. Sometimes you can't even see that motherfucker, but he's still around. He's still doing his job, but he not in your sight. And it be like that. Like, sometimes the best thing you can do is just stop. Just sit down and breathe and get your energy back and understand what you're going through and why you're going through it. Like, it's not for me. I be in those situations, and it don't be until I really get that time to just sit, that things start clicking and I can move forward. Like, this whole week, I've been, I'll say, out of commission. Like, I haven't been able to show up just because it wasn't, my body was just telling me I needed to rest and I needed to sit down and take time for myself and not be so focused on work like I have been the past few weeks. And a part of me really wanted to fight that. A part of me really wanted to avoid that. Part of me didn't want that at all, but I needed that. And I know myself well enough now to this point that I allow myself to get that. And now I'm coming back, not 100. I'm not 100% yet, but I can now work myself back up to 100% because I gave myself the time and space to get to a good foundation, a good standing. And that's what it takes sometimes. But if I'm just rushing all the time, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I would have just ended up burning out like the thousands of other times I've just worked myself to burning out. And if sometimes you gotta learn that way. Sometimes you gotta learn the hard way. And that's what I had to do. I had to learn the hard way. Like I said, I done burned myself out so many times. There's been times where my body was breaking down. And that's not necessary. I've had people try to warn me, like, hey, all of that's not necessary. I can be a little stubborn. I did listen. Or I listened in the best way I knew, but I still didn't know how to rest. And you're not really taught how to rest. Like, you taught how to sleep, but when anytime you not working, people around you trying to tell you you lazy or you need to be doing something, that makes you feel like you always need to be doing something, but you don't. You don't. You don't. Sometimes doing nothing is just as important as doing everything. I'll say doing nothing is essential to being able to do whatever you want to do. In my day to day, I have to make time for me to be able to do absolutely nothing. If I want to, I can scroll on my phone. I can watch some TikToks. I can watch some anime. Maybe read a book. Maybe like I can do nothing. I can lay on the ground, take a nap. I can just lay on the ground and be lazy because that's what I need to work at full force. And I can go from doing that for a gap of time, and then that'll be the recharge I need to go do 5, 6, 7 other things, 4 that I didn't even have planned. So don't think you just always need to be in go mode because you don't. That's not necessary. You can make progress without always being in a rush. And that's fine. Like sometimes, and this also is the thing with slowing down. Sometimes it's when you only have 20%, your 100% doesn't look like if you had 100%, but that's still your 100%. And it can be very easy for me to get hard on myself and beat myself down and all of this because I'm not doing what I'm typically doing or what I'm supposed to be doing. But if you don't got it, you don't got it. And that's okay. You don't have to force yourself to get it. You don't have to do nothing. Like, it's okay to just rest. It's okay to not have the answers. It's okay for all of this to be taking a long time. It can be very frustrating, especially if you grinding every day and you trying to make some shit shape. Like, I understand. It's very frustrating when you aren't seeing what you want. I get it. I promise you. But just because you're not seeing what you want, that doesn't mean you won't see what you want. And you can't really control when that happens. But like we said with the big break earlier, if you won't go every day nonstop, breaking yourself down to get to your big break or your starting point, you're going to be fucking tired. Like, you're going to be drained to where now you are in the limelight. Now it's your time to shine. And you can't perform like you're supposed to because you didn't have any sort of rest. You didn't have any sort of allocation of your time other than work. And that's not healthy. Overwork is an addiction just like anything else. And I think that's something that really get hit with men a lot because of the social norms of how we supposed to be, how we supposed to show up, what a man's supposed to do. That leads men, that's one of the things that lead men to such a lonely life. And I've experienced it firsthand, both with me and in the view of my father. Because as a child, I was upset because how often he had to work. But he had to move and be in this rush for work because he had priorities. He had to pay bills and stuff. And I'm not telling you not to pay bills, but if you in this rush to do something, it can block your view of everything else around you, and it won't allow you to show up as the full whole version that you can be. It won't allow you to not only take time for work, but also take time for rest, but also take time for your relationships, also take time for hobbies, also take time for whatever. Like, when you're in a rush, you feel like the work is the only thing you can do productive in your life. But that is not true. Everything else is just as productive and helps you move along just as much. I've learned the things I learned in my little side quest are the things that got me doing this or showing up to this level. It's not just the things that was the things I was supposed to do for my career. So it's okay for things to take time, and it's okay for you to rest. You do not have to rush this process. There is no time limit to your growth. Bill Withers started writing songs. I think he was like 40, 50. People talk about all the time. Colonel Sanders made KFC like 60s, 70s. Now, where he got the recipe from, we're not going to talk about that. But you got time. As long as your time's still ticking on your life, you got time. Now, that don't mean you have to push back starting if it's not necessary. But if your body is telling you to rest, rest. Just let it happen because that's what you need. You are not weak for resting. You do not have to beat yourself up for resting. You don't have to hate yourself for resting because humans were made to rest. You are not a machine. You cannot function at 100% all the time. And to be real, your machines don't function at 100% all the time. Your phone shut down sometimes. Your computer get overheated. If the but we just let that happen. But you expect yourself to be perfect. You are not whatever you perceive as perfect. You are a human, and humans need to slow down sometimes. Humans don't need to be in such a big rush. The money in the stock game is not tomorrow. It's your investment in 40 years. And that same amount of money that might have made you $1 million in 40 years, if you take it out in 10 years, you got 10,000. Like, maybe 100. But there's a big gap when it comes to time. So don't be in such a rush that you're not making the most out of this moment and you're not allowing yourself to do what's necessary for you in this moment. It's okay to slow down. So thank you for tuning in. This is How to Beat You Podcast. I'm your host, Gerald Henry. You can stay up to date with all things How to Beat You at Gerald.Henry on all my socials. And if you want to be a guest, you can hit me on my socials or my email at geraldhenry@gmail.com. So thank you. And you got this. Just slow the fuck down. Thank you.